Why, hello there. I'm Sin. We are in the Book Nook, and today we are going to talk about some of my favorite horror that takes place in the woods. I'm a big fan of horror that's outdoors. I mean, I like haunted house stories, don't get me wrong, but I love outdoor horror. In the woods, in the water. Underwater horror is my favorite, but like in the woods might be a close second. So today we're going to talk about some of my favorite horror in the woods. And we'll start with the first one, which is Jackal by Aaron E. Adams. I read this book a couple years ago, and it's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's tell you a little bit about it. Liz Rocher is coming home, reluctantly. As a Black woman, Liz doesn't exactly have fond memories of Johnstown, Pennsylvania, a predominantly white town, but her best friend is getting married, so she braces herself for a weekend of awkward, passive-aggressive reunions. Liz is grown, though. She can handle whatever awaits her. But on the night of the wedding, somewhere between dancing and dessert, the newlywed's daughter, Caroline, disappears, and the only thing left behind is a piece of white fabric covered in blood. As a frantic search begins, with the police combing the trees for Caroline, Liz is the only one who notices a pattern. A summer night, a missing girl, a party in the woods. She's seen this before. Keisha Woodson, the only other Black girl in Liz's high school, walked into the woods with a mysterious man and was later found with her chest cavity ripped open and her heart removed. Liz shudders at the thought that it could have been her, and now Caroline is missing. It can't be a coincidence. As Liz starts to dig through the town's history, she uncovers a horrifying secret about the place she once called home. Children have been going missing in the woods for years. All of them Black, all of them girls. And then it says, "It's your turn." With the evil in the forest creeping closer, Liz knows what she must do. Find Caroline or be entirely consumed by the darkness. I have a standalone review for this. If you're interested in a little bit more info on it, I'll put a link down to that below. Awesome book. I mean, obviously all these books are going to be books I really enjoyed. They're on this list. So I always do that too. I'm always like, it's awesome. Highly recommend. Well, yeah, it's on the list. So duh. Duh, Sin. All right. So the next one is This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. And this is about a group of friends who basically go like map out this cliff wall that they find in Kentucky. There's an influencer named Dylan. Dylan is a rock climber, and this is kind of a big deal because she's going to be the first person to like climb it and map it out. And so let me tell you a little bit about it. This trip is going to be Dylan's big break. Her geologist friend Clay has discovered an untouched cliff face in the Kentucky wilderness, and she is going to be the first person to climb it. Together with Clay, his research assistant Sylvia, and Dylan's boyfriend Luke, Dylan is going to document her achievement on Instagram and finally cement her place as the next rising star in rock climbing. 7 months later, 3 bodies are discovered in the trees just off the highway, all in various states of decay. One a stark white skeleton, the second emptied of its organs, and the third a mutilated corpse with the tongue, eyes, ears, and fingers removed. But Dylan is still missing, and no trace of her dead or alive has been discovered. Were the climbers murdered? Did they succumb to cannibalism? Or are their impossible bodies the work of an even more sinister force? Okay, so this book too, it's very liminal. The past bleeds into the present. Things move around, and it's such a strange and a weird read. I absolutely loved it. I have standalone reviews for most of these books. I have one for this one as well. So if you want more info on this book, that'll be down below in the darkness as well. Okay, so next up we have Smothermoss by Alyssa Alluring, and takes place in Appalachia. So, a little bit about it. In the 1980s, Appalachia, sisters Sheila and Angie couldn't be more different. While their mother works long shifts at the nearby asylum, Sheila cares for their home and keeps to herself, even when enduring relentless bullying. Her fearless younger sister Angie is more focused on fighting imaginary zombies and creating tarot-like cards that seem to have minds of their own. When the brutal murder of 2 female hikers on the nearby Appalachian Trail stuns a small community, the sisters find themselves tangled in a dangerous game of cat and mouse. Angie discovers a ripped, blood-soaked shirt, money Sheila's been stashing away disappears, and a strange man tries to barter with a woman's watch at a local store. As the threat of violence looms larger, The mysterious ancient mountain they live on and their willingness to trust each other might be the only things that can save these sisters from the darkness consuming their home. This book is like a folk horror. There's like weird myth that's like ties in with like stories of this like stone man from the mountain, and it's almost like the mountain is alive. And so it's a weird story of like horror in the woods, but also there's like weird caves and stuff around, and it's strange and eerie, and it was just a really great read. I highly enjoyed my time with it. It's got a really cool looking cover. It's awesome. All right, next up, because we're in the woods, Bigfoot is probably in the woods. He's out there somewhere. And not all the Bigfoots are good. Not all of them are bad, but in this book we're going to talk about one of them is definitely not good. It's called Rogue, and it is by Luke Phillips, and it is an excellent Bigfoot horror. And if you've been around the channel, you know I love cryptids. I love cryptid horror. So let me give you a little bit on this. So the mountains and forests of Washington State harbor a secret. It has remained hidden for millennia, an apex predator that has mastered the art of the hunt. Intelligent, savage, destructive. And now, gone rogue. It no longer sticks to the shadows, the hunt is on, and we are its prey. Nina Lee is a forest ranger assigned to numerous missing persons cases across Mount Rainier National Park and beyond. She knows some come up here to disappear, and she knows most will never be found. But something has changed. Reports of a killer bear, and the arrival of an undisclosed government agency have the community on edge. As brutal murders and home invasions implicate the work of a criminal gang, her father suggests something else is behind the killings. Something from her past and from all their pasts, and it wants revenge. In Rogue, legend comes to life. Nina is in denial too. Like, she doesn't believe in Bigfoot, even though she should, but she doesn't. She just doesn't believe this creature could exist. Does she change her mind? Probably. The thing about this book too, in the beginning, you get all these little stories that kind of like people who went camping, their encounters with the Bigfoot, and then you get some from the Bigfoot perspective too, which I thought was cool. You get some from like the rogue Bigfoot, the killer guy, and then you also get this other family that they don't really, they're curious of the humans, but they're not out to like murder the humans. And so in the beginning, it's a bunch of like different stories, and you're like, how is this gonna coalesce into one story? So if you start to read it and you're like, oh, this is weird, eventually it all comes together. And I liked having all those little stories because you get a little more feel for like what's going through the Bigfoot's mind and this, that, and the other. And I just thought it was a really fun cryptid Bigfoot horror. So if you're in the woods, watch out for Bigfoot. All right, so after that one, I'm gonna call it horror. Maybe it's a thriller, but I think it's like a horror thriller, and that is Hunted by Darcy Coates. Darcy Coates just writes addictive reads, and I think this might actually be my favorite Darcy Coates book. Takes place in the woods, and this book was recommended to me by my librarian. I had just finished some other Darcy Coates book, and she was like, "Oh, you like Darcy Coates?" She's like, "You have to read this one. This one's my favorite." And then I did, and I was like, "Yes, awesome." This follows the story. 22-year-old Eileen goes missing while hiking in the remote Ashlow Forest. 5 days later, her camera is discovered washed down river containing bizarre photos taken after her disappearance. So what do those photos show? And it seems like there's a weird creature in the photos that looks like it could almost be, I mean, I'm not saying it's a Sasquatch, but I'm not saying it's not a Sasquatch. Chris wants to believe Eileen is still alive. When the police search is abandoned, he and 4 of his friends create their own search party to scour the mountain range. As they stray further into the dark forest and the unsettling discoveries mount, they begin to believe that they're not alone in the trees and that Eileen's disappearance wasn't an accident. By that point, it's too late to escape. So, do they escape? Does anyone get out? Who dies? I don't know. It's crazy. It's intense. It's a page turner. It's a page burner. Haunted, Darcy Coates. If you're a Darcy Coates fan and you haven't read Haunted yet, definitely read Haunted. It is a fun one, and it's in the woods, and it's super creepy. Okay, also, I want to do an honorable mention because this story starts out in the woods and it finishes in the woods, but the big middle part is not really in the woods. But I really loved it. It is not out yet either. It comes out in April, and that is The Staircase in the Woods. So obviously, what's in the title? This is by Chuck Wendig. This is the first Chuck Wendig book I read, and I picked it up because that title, I was like, The Staircase in the Woods. I love that. And this is a real phenomenon too. There's like random staircases in the woods and places because a lot of times the staircase is like one of the stronger structures in the houses. And when houses like decay or burn down, the staircase will remain standing. A lot of times fireplaces too. But anyways, if you look it up, you'll find instances where you can go visit actual staircases in the woods. So this book, we're throwing it in there because, like I said, it starts in the woods and it ends in the woods. All right, so it's these five friends. They all go camping when they're teenagers. You know, what do kids do when they go camping? They drink, drugs, whatever. So these five friends go camping. They stumble upon this staircase in the woods. It feels wrong. And they decide, like, they're not going to go up it, whatever. They go past and they go set up camp and then they start drinking and stuff. And then two of the people, Lore and Maddie, they go off. They've kind of been hooking up, and so they go off and they end up getting in a fight. And then after this fight, Maddie decides he's going to climb the staircase and he invokes what he calls the covenant, which is something these friends have amongst themselves, like if they need help, or if someone's being bullied, or if there's like an exam paper they need to have written, everyone will come together and help each other out. And Maddie never ever has invoked a covenant for anything. So he invokes it for this, to have people come up the stairs with him. And they're like, no, we don't really want to, this, that, and the other. But then they end up all following him. And he goes up the stairs and he goes to jump off the stairs. Portal opens up above him and he disappears. And everyone's like, what the F happened to him? No one ends up going up the stairs after them. And they look away for like a hot minute. Everyone's like not paying attention to the stairs, and stairs disappear. And then like they're in disbelief. They're like, what the F? And so, anyways, fast forward 20 years later, one of their friends, Nick, who was there when this happened, he never really stopped looking for Maddie. He calls them, or he emails them, and he's like, hey, I'm inviting you guys to my funeral. I am dying of pancreatic cancer. I just want you to come spend time with me before I spiral down the drain, before this really like takes me away. So they're all, reluctantly, they all go and they meet up, and they haven't really seen each other. They all kind of went their separate ways. Like this kind of broke them after losing their friend Maddie. And so they meet up. The driver picks everyone up from the airport, takes them to where Nick is, and the driver takes them to the woods. And they're like, what the F? I thought we were going to a hotel. What is this? And Nick comes up and he's like, hey guys, da 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 da. And they're like, why are we here? And he's like, we're camping. And they're like, why? And he's like, we used to camp all the time. And so for Owen, one of the people, and this is like, well, he stopped going in the woods after the whole thing with Maddie happened and whatnot. So anyways, they're like, okay, whatever. And so he takes them about an hour in the woods to the campsite. When they get to the campsite, right before they start feeling weird, like something doesn't feel right. And it's a feeling maybe they've had before. And they come out into this clearing, and guess what's there? A staircase in the woods. So now they're going to have to decide, are they going to go and try to go up that staircase and try to find Maddie? Well, it wouldn't really be much of a book if they didn't. So they go up there and they end up somewhere else. And it is a great book. I absolutely loved it. So it's not fully in the woods, but it's partially in the woods. So I wanted to include it in this list because I thought it was absolutely awesome. This comes out April 29th, I want to say. I'm not 100% on that date, but I believe that's when it comes out. Do you guys have any favorite horror in the woods? Because I'm always looking for more. I don't know, something about the atmosphere and the weird things, and like, like think about like being in the dark out in the woods, like weird creatures, hearing sounds, your mind starts playing tricks on you, like a lot of like good atmosphere for horror. So if you do have a favorite, let me know down in the comments. Would love to check out more horror in the woods. And if you like videos where I talk about multiple things I'm reading or have read, next video coming up will be about that, so stick around, check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.